I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist, and this is Equal Entertainment. Ken Jennings will step in for Mayim Bialik as host of the upcoming season of Celebrity Jeopardy. Bialik says she won't host the second season of the show in support of the ongoing WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes. Showrunner Michael Davies says the questions for the second season were completed prior to the writers' strike. Season 40 of Jeopardy will repeat questions and contestants due to the strike. Celebrity Jeopardy premieres on September 27th. Demi Lovato is parting ways with manager and music executive Scooter Braun. Braun became Lovato's manager in 2019. Lovato released 2 studio albums with Braun, one in 2021 and one last year. Her next studio album is set to be released next month. It also appears that the two are not parting on bad terms. Braun posted a birthday tribute to Lovato on Instagram over the weekend and called her, quote, one of the kindest souls out there. Lana Del Rey is going from summertime sadness to something special for the fall season. She's hitting the road for a limited tour. Del Rey will stop in 10 cities across the U.S. Del Rey's 9th studio album, Did You Know That There's a Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard, released in March. Her tour kicks off on September 14th in Tennessee. Because of the Hollywood strikes, many have not worked for weeks and even months, and that's adding to the issues many struggling actors and writers face on a daily basis. Trans actor Shakina says economic justice and representation are intertwined.
We always talk about representation mattering, right? We talk about the fact that we don't get to understand ourselves sometimes until we see ourselves. And that's the importance of making these stories, not only visible, but authentic in their visibility. But we can't separate representation from economic justice. And that is what is at the core of the strike for me, because I know, as a person who I've been out here in Hollywood and Broadway for the last decade, striving to make the world a better place for my community. And it's been a hand-to-mouth struggle to survive at times. And if I can't take care of myself, I certainly can't show up into the world to take care of others. And so when we think about the systems that profit off of our stories, we have to make sure that that profit is shared in a way that is fair and empowering, and honestly, in a way that continues to dismantle the economic systems of oppression that keep us powerless. And that is the trick, because for so long, the studios have been content to capitalize on our stories and our trauma without doing the work to elevate us out of the situations that keep us marginalized. And so much of that is economic.
Red, White, and Royal Blue is being praised for being authentically queer. 2 key decisions that stand out for fans include a central sex scene and also casting icon Uma Thurman as the President of the United States.
I have to say, in some ways, as a lesbian, the one kind of central sex scene, I was like, "Ooh, this feels, in some ways like a lesbian sex scene to me."
Good, I'm happy.
So it's like there's that connection right in that moment, and that is a compliment.
Trust me, I take it as the highest compliment. I think Robbie and I were really. It was important to us that this scene come across as being made by 2 people who knew what they were talking about and knew what they were doing, and we had to be able to lead this across the board with our actors, with our camera operator, with our it was one of these things where we needed to read everyone into the plan, so that when we got onto that set, to that closed set, everybody knew what we were doing, what we were going for, and why. And I think it, and my feeling about how the scene looks and works feels echoed by a lot of, I feel like sort of validated and vindicated in some ways by the reaction that it's had. And so, actually, it's funny. I just had lunch with Robbie today, and it was our first time we've seen each other since the movie came out. And we were just sort of talking about wow, that was the most, it was like D-Day in some ways, the planning that went into that scene, but we're very, very happy that we're very happy with how it ended up on screen, and also how it's been responded to.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you. And I want to talk a little bit about that scene with Alex and the president, his mother,
Mhm.
his kind of coming out scene, which has this extra meaning for some. I mean, Uma Thurman has been around queer adjacent projects. I remember
Yeah.
her in Even Cowgirls Get the Blues way back
Right,
when.
right, 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 right.
And so this really tender, lovely moment that's also full of humor, and also brings up things that we don't hear in films, especially
Yeah.
rom-coms. Truvada. I mean, so would you talk a bit about that scene, please?
I think, you know, I think there is this long held belief that movies such as this needs to keep itself pretty general in order to be available to as broad an audience as possible. And of course, you want as many people to see this film as possible. Um, and but I also, my experience as a playwright teaches me that the best way to achieve universality is to go for specificity, and
Mm,
that audiences actually do appreciate not being talked down to, not being treated as if they were children.
mhm.
And what would this conversation be? It's a movie that is made by a queer writer director, um and and I wanted to hear a scene, and I wanted to direct a scene that made sense to me.
Mhm.
And I also, was important to me is with Uma's character, with Ellen, sort of in some ways being a little more ready for this conversation than even Alex
Yeah.
is yes, it'd be great. Everybody wants, like, mom of a queer kid to be able to have this conversation. But the thing that was actually most important to me is, like, I want the president of the United States to be so on top of it that she
Mhm.
knows her shit, and that, like, her constituents who are queer identifying, who are men who have sex with men, are understood and known by their president. I want a president like that. And so, for me, when I was talking to Uma about that scene, I was like, yeah, we're going to talk about Truvada, we're going to talk about bottoming, we're going to talk about HPV, and you're definitely going to be the world school's mom, but you're also going to be the world's most responsible president.
This is a beautiful romantic love story, a rom-com, but there's something radical in the nature of a genre where there's going to be a happy ending. So you go into this queer love story knowing no one's dying, they're not breaking up, no one's going to be in a mental institution like back in the day. Um,
This is in the turning
so,
point.
or yeah, or imprisoned. So, would you talk about what it means to you that fans have embraced this film that is in its way radical by the nature of its genre?
Every person on earth deserves a happy ending.
Yeah.
Um, and certainly every queer person uh, deserves one, and so many of us are often denied it. I don't think that it appeared in our narratives because it wasn't true, right? I think that those tragic endings were there because they were true, and I think there is some value. And I don't think we should ever pretend that those narratives didn't exist both in our popular culture and in the lives of so many queer people who came before us. There is a great deal of tragedy in our
Mm,
past, and we shouldn't shy away from that. And we shouldn't shy away from depicting that. And there's nothing wrong with that. We also have the right to happy endings, and we
yeah.
also have the right to our own fairy tales. And while for the most part we've been allowed to tell the story of our tragedies, we've not been able really to tell the story of our triumphs and our hopes.
You can watch the Advocate channel live by downloading our app in the Apple or Google Play Store. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. For the Advocate channel, I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist. There's more to come after this quick break.